There's a reason that I have called Cass Sunstein the most dangerous man in America. The following is from Progressives Today, a new website that you have to, if you really want the news on what the progressives are doing, it's a great website. From the column in Bloomberg called Open Brain Insert Ideology. Listen to this. Suppose that an authoritarian government decides to embark on a program of curricular reform. Just suppose that an authoritarian government decides to embark on a program of curricular reform with the explicit goal of indoctrinating the nation's high school students. Suppose, just suppose, that it wants to change the curriculum to teach students that their government is good and trustworthy, that their system is democratic and committed to the rule of law, and that free markets are a big problem. Just suppose, try to figure, I know it's hard to figure one of these things out. Would the government succeed in that effort, or would high school students merely roll their eyes? Questions of this kind have long been debated, but without benefit of reliable evidence. Now, new research from the University of Munich, you gotta love when Munich or the University of Berlin are doing stories on and research on how to indoctrinate people. From the University of Munich, shows recent curricular reforms in China, explicitly designed to transform students' political views, have mostly worked. The findings offer remarkable evidence about the potential influence of the high school curriculum on what students end up thinking. They gave us some important insights into contemporary China as well. Listen to this story. Starting in 2001, China decided to engage in a nationwide reform of its curriculum, including significant changes in the textbooks used by students in grades 10, 11, and 12. In that year, China's Ministry of Education stated that education should form a student's correct worldview, a correct view of life, and a correct value system. In his piece, Cass Sunstein treats this university study as something that could guide U.S. policy. As Cantoni, that's the guy who did the research at the University of Munich, as Cantoni and his co-authors summarize their various findings. Now, this is Cass Sunstein who is saying this. The state can effectively indoctrinate students. To be sure, families and friends matter, as do economic incentives. But if an authoritarian government is determined to move students in major ways, it may well be able to do so. Is this conclusion limited to authoritarian nations? In a democratic country with a flourishing civil society and a high degree of pluralism and ample room for disagreement and dissent, like the U.S. I'm still quoting Cass Sunstein. It may well be a little harder to use the curriculum to change the political views of young people, but even in such societies, high schools probably have a significant ability to move students towards what they consider a correct worldview, correct view of life, and a correct value system. This is an opportunity, to be sure, but also a warning. Cass Sunstein, this is a opportunity, to be sure, but also a warning. Conform, the new book, available everywhere. Get it. Stop this from happening. It is absolutely incredible that nobody on the left seems to have a problem with the indoctrination of our children. And Cass Sunstein, who is the architect of this nightmare, coming out and saying, hey, you know what? Look what China's doing. Since when do we think this is a good idea to indoctrinate our children? This administration is the administration that pushed to have all propaganda done on U.S. citizens removed from the books as it being illegal. Excuse me? Now Cass Sunstein says what they're doing in China to their children presents an opportunity? For the controlist, compulsory government schooling is the prime place to teach naive students to love the state, despise capitalism, and make the individual secondary to the collective. Could I go back to the story that we gave you last week on the Blaze? Remember the test? Pat, you read it. Do you remember the test that you had to correct all of the sentences?
Yes.
And which sentence was wrong?
Yeah.
Or just correct the punctuation or something like that.
Yeah.
And they were all the
leftist.
president is good. Mm-hmm. The president is the authority on laws. Whatever the government says, the citizens must do. The government protects us.
Yeah. It's just a way to indoctrinate.
That's all it is.
Without actually saying overtly that you're indoctrinating. It just comes in a punctuation quiz.
I will tell you that they are not learning arithmetic in these schools. That's not the point. That's why they don't care about any of this. That's why the everything is so sloppy, because all they really care about is the indoctrination. And they'll put whatever, get the math figures in, get the right answers, whatever. All they care about is the indoctrination. The teaching that private ownership is wrong and that white privilege exists. These are the lessons that our children are being taught. And I am begging you, do not allow your kids to go to school with this indoctrination. Please. We will lose our country permanently. Do not do it. I said this morning to Mercury One, when I read this this morning. Is Joe still in here? I read this morning and I thought, okay, before your kids go to school, I want you to bring your kids down here to Dallas. We have to do our history museum. It was the most important thing that I think we did last summer. We have something happening that I can't talk to you about because the last two have fallen through on us. So until this one is all completely done, until I'm actually in the venue, possibly on stage, I'm not going to tell you where it is. But we have to do our museum. I said this morning, let's find out if we can, once we finish the renovation of Studio A, maybe we keep it closed for an extra month this August, and we open it up for the museum, and we put a museum in there, and you can come with your kids and tour the Mercury and Glenn Beck museum, the library that we're collecting. So you'll be able to teach your kids history. If your kids don't know history, if they don't see it, I'm just thinking another thing we have to do. I'm working on this thing with Brent Ashworth, who is just amazing guy, a historian. He's been collecting things for the last, 50 years, and has some of the most remarkable things I've ever seen. And we've been working on some videos with him and everything else, and I want to get a book out from him. And I don't mean even a book. I mean like almost like a soft cover that can be, every 6 months we give you an additional piece of history, another, 150 artifacts that prove what they're teaching in school is wrong. I'm beginning to understand now why one of my promptings 4 years ago was clay pots. Do you remember? I've said that to you before. I didn't even know what the hell clay pots meant. I'm praying, and all I hear I don't even know, Pat. Do you remember 6 months? Mm-hmm. All I kept hearing was clay pots, clay pots, clay pots. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. You need to be a little more specific with me. And so what I did was I thought, okay, this means that we have to either take all of our history and put it into clay pots. This is why I've bought up all of this stuff, because maybe I'm supposed to preserve it and put it in a clay pot someplace, if I can only find a cave and some clay pots. Or later my understanding was our children are the clay pots. We have to have these artifacts to be able to show these artifacts to our children, to be able to preserve it inside of them so they'll never, ever forget. It's why we did the Man in the Moon last summer. Because I wanted those kids who you brought last year to always remember. I remember the summer we went and we saw the moon come alive. we saw the moon, because they'll remember the messages. They'll remember how they felt, and it will be printed on their heart. The same thing with history.
So, assuming you're not advocating truancy, when you say don't send your kids to school, you're talking about private school, you're talking about homeschool, you're talking about
homeschool.
But what's the third? Is the third option going in there, knowing the stuff that's in conform, knowing the truth, and then being able to go in there and fight it?
No. Here's the thing. You can't, even if you have your kids out of school, you have to go in and fight this anyway. We must stop this from happening. When Cass Sunstein looks at the programs, and they're going to say, oh, he's out of the administration now. He has nothing to do with it. I'm telling you, this guy is the architect. There is a reason I have felt for so long this is the most dangerous man. He is the guy who is the architect. He's the guy who looked at all the levers and the pulleys and said, pull this one, turn that knob 3/4, and pull this lever now. He's the guy the reason why we have SWAT teams, the reason why we have EPA regulations the way we do, the reason that we are being smeared as conspiracy theorists, and the reason why Common Core is teaching propaganda. They know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly what they're doing. And if you read, you know what, Orrin Hatch, you still piss me off. Orrin Hatch said to me one time when I said, how could you vote for that man? How could you vote for Cass Sunstein to be the regulatory czar? Oh, that was, Glenn, let me tell you something. That was just, he was just an academic. He's just saying those things. He believes those things. How could you possibly vote for him? Well, he does a lot of good stuff. Yes, if you're a giant progressive and you want to control people's lives. Any man who says, and I just want to quote, it should form in students a correct worldview, a correct view on life, and a correct value system. It's an opportunity to be sure. He's talking about the United States of America modeling on the testing that they're doing in China and started in 2001.
One of my favorite developments of this cast of characters is that every, administration official you said anything about, even in passing, over the past 10 years, have come out with a book, and the only thing they have to promote it is your comment. Glenn Beck called him the worst person ever. And they go through, and this is how they promote it. And Cass Sunstein did that as well. But it's amazing.
Really?
Yeah. But it's amazing to see that happen. When these guys go out and they mock the idea that that this was going on, and the media loves their little quotes and blurbs that you said, and they take it out of context, blah blah blah, and then 6 months later, what are they doing? The same stuff that you were criticizing them for before the book came out.
Oh yeah,
and it's such a frustrating cycle, and it's so blatantly transparent to anyone who pays attention.
Here's the thing: I truly believe there's not going to be a time with secrets, and you're just not going to have secrets. There are no secrets. It's all going to come out in the end. And these guys destroy themselves in the end. You know the nose picker in Congress? What's his name? The guy
Joe
who was
Garcia.
just digging for gold.
No, ear picker.
Ear picker. Yeah, he was picking his ear and eating it.
Yeah.
What a loser. This is the guy. Isn't that yummy? I mean, who wants a little earwax? So here's a guy who's picking his ears and eating his own earwax and then coming. Not kidding you. I'm not kidding you.
He was. And now worse than that.
Camera.
And now worse than that. Here's what he says.
An example of the kind of money we poured in. So the most dangerous, the safest city in America is El Paso, Texas. It happens to be across the border from the most dangerous city in the Americas, which is Juarez, right? Yeah. And two of the safest cities in America, two of them are on the border with Mexico, and of course the reason it is, we've proved that communism works. If you give everybody a good government job, there's no crime.
Okay, there you go. There was never crime in Russia.
No, I mean, a few million people died here and there.
There's no crime being committed currently in Cuba, and there's no crime being committed in Venezuela.
North Korea?
North Korea.
There was no crime in Cambodia.
There's no crime. There's no crime in China. There's none. There's no crime. They've proven communism works.
Vietnam.
Which is exactly what I said they would say 5 5 years ago.
I gotta say, you did say they would come out and say they were advocates
communists.
of this. And so
I didn't say they would say they were Marxists. I said they would say communism works.
Yeah, and there it is. And I will say that you've had bits and pieces of this before with commentators. With
yes,
this is a actual congressman,
U.S. congressman
saying this.
U.S. congressman from Florida. Oh. You would think the people in Florida, right across the water from Cuba, would rise up and say, "Hey, dude, you're eating too much of your own earwax." Here's our sponsor this episode.